group of plants being tested. The plants were then given 3 different sonic environments. A control group was grown in silence, another group was grown with both Western and Eastern classical music, and a third was grown with acid rock music. The volume was the same for both types of music. The plants which were grown with acid rock music had significantly lower dry root and dry stem leaf weights than both the control group and the group grown with Bach. The group grown with the classical music had heavier dry weights than both the silent control group and the acid rock group. Another result was that the acid rock group of plants grew away from the speakers and the wall, which were both sources of sound. The Bach group of plants grew toward the source of music, and the control group grew vertically. In regard to this study, it is interesting to note that in 1877, in Isis Unveiled, H.P. Blavatsky wrote that future experimenters will reap the honor of demonstrating that musical tones have a wonderful effect upon the growth of vegetation. According to a New York psychiatrist, Dr. John Diamond, hard rock music can impair muscle strength in humans. He reports that unusual beats characteristic of modern music can interfere with normal brainwave activity and cause a reduction in strength. In the Medical Tribune, Dr. Diamond writes that over 90% of people tested showed a sudden loss of more than 2/3 of their normal muscle strength on an electronic strain gauge while listening to some popular types of rock. After analyzing thousands of recordings, Dr. Diamond isolated the rhythm as 2 short beats followed by a long one, which he calls stopped anapestic. The beat, says Diamond, is just the opposite of the heartbeat and pulse, and may act as a stress signal that disrupts the alpha waves normally flowing between the 2 hemispheres of the brain. When this occurs, the regular signals to the muscles may become disrupted and cause weakness. Although relatively little research has been done on the harmful effects of music, much investigation has gone into the beneficial influences of music and its application to therapy. Today, both music psychology and music therapy are fast-growing disciplines which are rediscovering and extending the knowledge of music and its impact on human consciousness, which for centuries was studied and utilized for the benefit of humanity. As we have seen, music can definitely bring about positive changes in mood. This effect has been applied in the successful treatments of many types of mental illness, including schizophrenia and manic depressive psychosis.
There are 2 types of music therapy, active and passive. In passive music therapy, the patient simply listens to music. Passive music therapy sessions use music to quiet the apprehensive, calm the hyperactive, and stimulate the depressed patient. This type of music therapy can also help the patient reestablish contact with reality by drawing the person's attention away from a world of hallucination and daydreams or morbid depression, outward to surroundings and other people. In one study, it was found that when patients listened to music of a fast tempo, they talked significantly more to their fellow patients.
Music therapy in which patients take an active role in producing music or dancing to music has been particularly helpful in the treatment of emotionally disturbed and handicapped children. Activities such as group singing or dancing provide a sphere of experience which can induce vitally needed interpersonal contacts and create emotionally integrating bonds among the participants. Musical activities with their rhythmic melodic structures help the physically disabled child by promoting coordination and control of physical movements and support the expressive use of limbs and voice. Active music therapy can also bring about a sense of self-esteem and achievement among patients who feel they can enjoy the learning of a skill which can be used after leaving the institution.
Another therapy which has been successfully used is curative eurythmy, which incorporates rhythmical body movements with sound. It is a movement therapy developed by Rudolf Steiner and others, which translates tones and music into harmonious bodily movements. These repetitive rhythmical movements and the conscious effort and concentration needed to do them stimulate and release powerful organic forces according to the law of resonance and bring about inner psychic healing.
The modus operandi whereby these healing changes are brought about is not clearly understood by music psychologists. However, it is agreed that the process is very complex. Each person responds in a unique way to music, depending on his or her psychological makeup and temperament. From the Theosophic view, this idiosyncratic response would be conditioned by the degree of development of the different chakras.
The psychological changes which are induced by music also have physiological correlations. It is known from research that music can, for example, increase body metabolism, influence hormonal secretions, accelerate or decrease respiration, pulse, and blood pressure, and lower the threshold for sensory stimuli. In addition to the entire physiological response of the ear transmitting nerve impulses to the auditory brain center, there are, as we have seen earlier, effects created in the subtler vehicles of an individual. Although these effects on the subtler vehicles are again idiosyncratic, there are some general principles which can be deduced from the esoteric view of music psychology.
For instance, music which is predominantly rhythmic, such as marches or martial music, would tend to stimulate the etheric or physical body and would produce the effect of strengthening the will. Charles Leadbeater, in a clairvoyant description of the effects of martial music on individuals, observed, "When upon the astral body, in a condition of chaos, there comes the impact of a succession of steady and powerful oscillations, that impact supplies for the time the place of the will force which has so sorely slackened. The bodies are once more brought into synchronous vibration and are held so by the sweep of the music, thus giving the willpower an opportunity to recover itself and take again the command which it had so nearly abandoned."
Music which is predominantly melodic would have the tendency to stimulate the intelligence and release intellectual capacities. For example, music can stimulate memories. One accomplished musicologist, Mario Pillo, reports that more than once music enabled me to retrieve from its hiding place, quite suddenly, some reluctant and elusive memory. Several years ago, a Neapolitan melody of no special merit, which was being played on a mandolin by a neighbor, enabled me in a few minutes to remember the subject of a manuscript I had lost years ago, also the ideas contained in it. Music, which is predominantly harmonic, would particularly influence the emotions and feelings of an individual.
Another interesting view on the healing effects of music is the astrological view, which postulates that the different organs in the body are under the influence of certain astrological signs. For instance, the heart is ruled by the sign Leo. Each astrological sign has a particular scale associated with it, and the scale associated with the sign of Leo is A sharp major. If an individual had some type of heart ailment, music which was played in the key of A sharp major would purportedly have the most beneficial influence. The slide shown here illustrates the astrological signs associated with the various parts of the body and the musical scale associated with each particular sign.
A key concept in utilizing sound as a healing agent is the occult principle that each individual soul sounds a keynote. This is analogous on a lower octave to the sounding of the word by the solar logos. The sounding of this tone by the soul creates and maintains the personality and physical vehicle. It is said that the processes of self-transformation, expansion of consciousness, and healing can be enhanced very much by knowing and sounding the individual's tone. According to Alice Bailey, the discovery of this tone, both in individuals and in the forms of the other kingdoms of nature, will in the future bring about a tremendous change in our understanding of sound and music. This discovery will usher in the true science of using sound and music to heal and even create new life forms. This knowledge will also enable people in the future to help individuals in the dying process by facilitating the withdrawal of the soul from the physical body.
Music, for it to be truly effective in healing and bringing about personality transformation, must be able to make man whole and bring about integration of the different aspects of the human psyche. This effect of music in creating wholeness, integration, or psychosynthesis has been described by Roberto Assagioli. This process of psychosynthesis is of 3 kinds or stages, each wider and more inclusive than the preceding one. The first stage of spiritual psychosynthesis is the process of integrating the conscious personality with the soul, or higher psychospiritual elements. The personality is not consciously aware of these elements due to their residing in the highest sphere of the unconscious, the superconscious. At this stage, music has a psychoanalytic character which brings into the field of waking consciousness many drives, emotions, and complexes which were creating difficulties in the unconscious, transmuting and integrating them with the superconscious. Truly religious music is very effective in producing such a synthesis, as it awakens and stimulates the spiritual seeds which exist in every one of us.
The second level of psychosynthesis is inter-individual psychosynthesis, which establishes a union of consciousness between individuals from the smallest societal combination of the family to various social, national, and international groups. Inter-individual psychosynthesis is aided by all music which expresses collective emotions and expressions, and would include national anthems and folk songs, and those belonging to particular organizations or group activities, such as harvest songs or work songs. One of the highest and most musical expressions of the psychosynthesis of humanity is Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, which reaches its climax with the singing of Schiller's Ode to Joy and the words, "Be embraced, ye millions of men." The third stage is cosmic psychosynthesis, which consists of an ever-increasing recognition and acceptance by the individual of the laws, the relationship, and the rhythms governing life in its widest sense. This could be called the discovery of, and in tuning to, the harmony of the spheres. It is conscious participation in the great life of the universe.
As we have seen, music and sound are potent forces in the life of the universe and in the life of man. Like other energies, they can be used for either the hindrance of human growth and health, or the refinement and expansion of human consciousness. Consequently, the wise use of the universal forces of sound and music becomes a matter of concern and responsibility for all people. Perhaps what makes music such a potent force in human spiritual development is that, in one sense, our whole being is music. Our mind, our body, and the nature in which we live and move and have our being is